Hello everyone. Good morning. I hope you're all doing well. It's been a minute since I've done a live, but I have had this feeling all weekend, especially, to hop on here and talk about this particular full moon in Scorpio that I think I want to dive in just a little bit more into. For those of you who follow my weekly forecasts on YouTube, I talked about it there. But I want to get into a little bit of the nuances of what this full moon in Scorpio means and why it can feel the way it feels. Hopefully I can remember to do this from different perspectives. So one of the things that I noticed, and one of the things that I will remind you of if you watch my weekly forecasts, I've said this several times, the week leading up to a full moon, we feel it. We feel like almost like this bubble of energy, of emotion rising, and we kind of hold that, right? Or it comes up until the day of the full moon where we reach the peak point, and it's like it bursts, and that can either literally manifest in us bursting into tears or an outburst of joy as well, right? So take that into consideration, that the week leading up to a full moon, there is a buildup, there is a leading up to something that needs to come to not just fruition, but also to the forefront of your awareness so that you understand what you're working with at that moment in time. Now, take all of that and put that onto the energy of Scorpio. Okay, so Scorpio, a lot of times, right, it's described as intense and transformative and the rise of the phoenix, and none of that is wrong. All of that is 100% right, and there's a reason for that, right? But what does that look like, and what does that mean to us at this moment in time? We want to remember the context of the year that we're living in. We want to remember the context of what 2025 represents. And the closest thing that I can compare this 2025 year to is 2020. In different ways, for different reasons, but just because we're not experiencing something like we did in 2020, the energy of transformation, a turning point, a pivot is happening at this moment in time. And one of the things that this full moon in Scorpio is showing us, or is attempting to show us, is you are not allowing transformation to happen in your life. You are not crossing the threshold of transformation, the threshold of liberating your soul and actually feeling a life in this lifetime, because you keep on gripping onto the old ways of doing things. At any time that we are experiencing strong Scorpio energy, there is going to be some fear involved. So if there is any sign in the zodiac that represents fear, it's probably Scorpio, because it's co-ruled by Pluto, right? Pluto and Mars rule the sign of Scorpio, but Pluto is this energy of whenever we experience strong Plutonic transits, it is us coming face to face with our greatest fears, with the things that we think are going to completely disempower us, and perhaps in that process we might feel like they do, only to recognize the very thing that I thought would absolutely destroy me is the one thing that empowers me. Once I cross the threshold of letting it go, once I realize I don't have to grip onto this part of my identity, this part of doing things in order to build something sustainable over time. it's a really interesting time that we're moving through, because I think that the practical world is really our practical 3D reality life, our adulting life is really asking for us to step into it in a different way, in a very real way, like finances, moving, work, job, career, like all of those things are happening at the same time. We are experiencing a collective spiritual awakening. And those two things happening at the same time are somewhat of a, they mess with your mind a little bit, right? It's like, what am I supposed to focus on right now? And how can I possibly continue just going on with my life while I'm having somewhat of an existential crisis? I think that a huge reason for that is the nodes being in the signs that they are. The North Node is in the sign of Pisces. The North Node represents the soul evolutionary growth of how does my soul grow into more trust? How does my soul grow into more faith? Stephen Forrest describes the gift of Pisces as how do I recognize, acknowledge, and feel for the suffering of the world without becoming completely consumed by it? Because if I become completely consumed by it, then how can I possibly be of service? The South Node in Virgo is, can you let go of control? Can you release this tendency for perfection in the name of being chosen, being good enough, right? Perfectionistic, controlling tendencies, managing every single aspect of your life, managing other people's emotions or feelings or life. Those are a lot of things that are being highlighted right now with the South Node in Virgo. And so a big reason of why we do that, I think a lot of it has to do with codependence, especially when it comes to relationships. We want to manage other people's experience of life, and therefore we take on perhaps more responsibility than we should. We want to manage other people's expectations of us, so we do more at the cost of ourselves, right? The axes of the zodiac that is Virgo Pisces has to do with self-abandonment in its lower expression, has to do with being the martyr in its lower expression, right? So I'm putting these themes out there for you all so that you can begin to see, are these resonating? Do I see this in the unfolding of some of my relationships? Do I see these in the unfolding of my own growth, of how life is asking me to transform right now? And the understanding that this full moon in Scorpio is the reminder of this life is not a dress rehearsal. If there's anything that Scorpio teaches us in the zodiac, is the sacredness that this life is, because death is real, right? So when you think about the intensity of Scorpio energy or the intensity of a Scorpio person, a lot of times people who are of the sign of Scorpio get a lot of bad rep, but I think the intensity is greatly misunderstood. I think the intensity is also, they don't know, depending on how they're living through their life, they don't know how to hold it, they don't know how to express it, but it's also part of their scorpionic journey. But what they teach us is, how else am I supposed to live this life if it's not fully, if it's not wholly, if it's not completely tied to and understood that this is not a dress rehearsal, right? So when you live life from that foundation, right? And that is the way that you move through the world, because it is such a significant part of who you are. In comparison to other energies, other signs, or maybe perhaps the way that other people live, it is going to be intense, right? So it's an interesting energy that I think is misunderstood in a lot of ways. And because of the misunderstanding, we miss the core lesson, which is, this is one life. So if this full moon is bringing up things around This is what no longer works. I can no longer move through this life in this way, whether it's in a relationship or my career, partnerships, whatever it is, within myself, because I could die tomorrow, right? And that is the essence of Scorpio energy, the understanding that death is at any moment. That's why it's known as the sign of death and rebirth, because sometimes it's not metaphorical, right? It's the reminder, this is very real. In a year like 2025, that is an invitation of, can you allow your consciousness to evolve? That's the universe, God, source, spirit saying, can you trust in me and therefore trust in yourself and in the magic that lies within you, because you come from me. You come from me, that I am the universe. You are the universe in human form. Can you begin to trust that more and release these tendencies that have you controlling because you see yourself as just a small human being? When we really look at the spiritual lesson around this, when we look at this from a metaphysical perspective, this becomes a much bigger deal. And I think that our souls are ready to really be acknowledged in the way that this full moon is Scorpio is asking us to acknowledge our soul. Because it is in the depth of our soul that we are meant to find the answers of how to navigate this life from this point forward. My concern is right now, with so much emphasis on air energy, particularly Pluto and Aquarius, is that we might give our power away to technology, right? When in essence, we are meant to tap into the technology that exists within us, our powerful intuition. But first we have to understand that we have it. And first we have to learn how it sounds, how it communicates with us. And for that, we need to create spaciousness of peace that is not surrounded by chaos. And so this full moon in Scorpio will show you, or is attempting to show you, where is there chaos in your life that you are allowing to be there. I think that a different way of or a different manifestation of this full moon that I've noticed is that those that have really taken it to heart to say, you know what, I really am letting go of the old. I'm stepping into something new for myself and the unfolding of my life. What they're sharing is truly them showing up to life from an empowered space where they're manifesting really powerful opportunities, where they're connecting to people in a very powerful way, where they themselves are feeling so much more empowered about who they are, their purpose in the world, and why they came here, right? And this doesn't have to involve anything beyond your life and beyond yourself. This can very well be the connection to yourself, the connection to your soul, the connection to life in a day-to-day moment, because our lives are not insignificant. No matter how mellow, how calm, or how boring you may see your life, it's not insignificant, because life in itself is a spiritual practice. It's the invitation to meet yourself, to meet your soul time and time and time again through presence, right? So there's something really, really powerful about this full moon in Scorpio and its intensity and its invitation to not necessarily experience the process of death and rebirth through chaos, but to understand, oh, also when I choose differently, I am experiencing a process of death and rebirth. And how do I hold myself through that? I felt the need, or I felt compelled, I should say, to come on here and talk about this, because I think that a lot of times, again, Scorpio energy is described in a way that doesn't do it justice. Every sign in the zodiac has an important lesson to teach the rest of the signs. And Scorpio's message, Scorpio's lesson is powerful in that it teaches us the fragility of life, and therefore how important, how valuable it actually is at any given moment. Another thing that we want to keep in mind with this full moon in Scorpio is that as the moon is full, right? As the moon shines bright with the intensity of Scorpio energy, it's creating a beautiful connection, a beautiful trine to Saturn in Pisces and the North Node in Pisces. Here we have the two elements, the two planetary placements, like Saturn and the North Node, which represent growth. In Pisces, especially spiritual growth. Saturn, the responsibility we have to ourselves to answer the calling to that spiritual growth in the last sign of the zodiac. What does this mean? This means that this year particularly, and this full moon in Scorpio, are highlighting what needs to end, right? Here's yet another aspect of this full moon in Scorpio that comes with this message of an ending. What needs to end in order for my soul to grow and evolve in the way that it's asking me to? Because here's another thing. How your soul is asking you to grow, this isn't anything you are not aware of. You are not unaware. You are aware. You have seen it. Whether it's a mindset, whether it's certain fear around something, the outgrowing of a certain situation, of a certain relationship, of a certain place, of a certain way of doing your work, whatever it is, there is something that over the last couple of months, particularly over the last couple of weeks throughout Taurus season, it has been made very clear. It's okay to let that version of you go and step into this one. Because this version of you isn't just about the 3D human reality life. It's not just about what you're doing. It's about there is something in this that you are going to meet different parts of your soul, and your soul might meet other souls, other soul contracts, and that's really the point, right? A lot of times we can get stuck in the 3D reality of the unfolding, and rightfully so. We have to honor our human experience. Our human experience is beautiful. But when we forget that the human experience goes hand in hand with spiritual evolution, it's a very small window to look through. It's a very small window to look through. So then when a full moon like Scorpio comes in a year like 2025, and we're looking at our life solely through the lens of the human lens, the overwhelm of emotion can feel so much bigger. And then that's when we go from the ability to ask ourselves, what is this trying to teach me? Where is this trying to take me? How is this helping me grow and evolve? To why is this happening to me? How? And so we might then get stuck in loops of, I'm a failure. What did I do wrong? How did I get this wrong? How could I have screwed up so bad? Right? But it's not. That's not it. The North Node in Pisces is the invitation to begin living the day-to-day life as a spiritual practice and experience. Not because you're dissociating from your very real life, but because your very human life is the conduit to the spiritual practice that your soul came here to experience through your human body. I really invite you to take that in. Ooh, it makes me emotional almost as I say it. I think we are experiencing a different kind of death and rebirth. And because it is at another level, it might feel difficult to grasp. It might feel difficult to fully understand. So what I invite you to ask yourself is, what am I gripping onto for dear life that I know I have outgrown? Again, whether it's a belief system, thoughts, a part of our identity, a part of how we do work, right? And so when I release it, kindly, gently, with compassion, with love, and thank it for what it did for me, what does that then open? What are the possibilities that opens? Those who are stepping more and more into their power are realizing, oh, I'm so glad that I did that. I'm so glad that I let go of that belief system. I'm so glad that I leaned more into trust of source, of self, of who I truly am at my core. Because what you're noticing is, oh, this life really is full of possibility. And when I can acknowledge just how much possibility there is, it's going to come up against everything you have been taught, especially in a year like 2025. No matter how much work you've done, you will realize that there are different layers of limitations that you're meeting. And that's a beautiful thing. Because in true Scorpionic nature, what's happening is that you're getting deeper and deeper into the core of your power, of your essence. And that's what this year is asking us. Can you lead life through the essence of who you are? And the essence of who you are is God consciousness itself. And so what happens when you begin to live this human experience from the perspective of God consciousness, not because the tragedies of the world don't exist, not because life will not be life, but because you have a different understanding and a different bandwidth to hold life with. And then all of a sudden, the things that you do start coming from that God consciousness place. So, if this full moon in Scorpio feels intense, please understand that it's not as simple as Scorpio is such an intense energy. And, I'm experiencing these things with people in my life. No, there's something bigger happening here. There's something happening here at a soul level that's asking you to tap into that God consciousness and ask, what would God consciousness do? How would God consciousness have me look at the situation that I'm experiencing right now? Right? God consciousness makes no mistakes. So I am where I am for a purpose, on purpose. What is it? How do I sit with myself long enough so that I can feel into what that actually is without getting distracted by the Jupiter and Gemini of how much more information can I gain and who can I talk to and how many books can I read and how many podcasts can I listen to that are going to give me the answer that I'm searching, when really what's happening here is that you're being invited to find that answer within yourself. And you'll notice that happen more and more as the year goes on, especially as Jupiter moves into Cancer next month in June. The expansion and the growth that comes from the knowing that lives within. Right? So I just wanted to come on here and share that, and now I realize why. I like I said at the beginning, I was feeling like this call. You have to share. And what I realized is that the more I shared on this live, the more open and lighter my chest heart space felt. So now I realize. Let's see, Mary Louise Grecu shared earlier, this is exactly what's happening with me right now. I'm debating on leaving my job and going out on my own, but man, it's so scary. Yeah. Let's see, I was meant to be here. Yeah. So remember, honor your human experience. How can this be practical, right? A lot of times we give or we don't give enough power to the power of decision. So Mary Louise is moving through a space of, I want to leave my job. Okay. Can you decide with your whole heart, with your whole body first, that that's what you're going to do? And then give yourself enough time to exit in a way that doesn't completely mess with your nervous system, right? And this isn't me coaching you or anything. This is just a perfect example. We have to honor the human experience. And the reason that I'm saying that more and more now is because, for a lot of reasons, I don't want to get into it, but none of this spiritual awakening, none of this elevation of consciousness that we're experiencing this year takes away our human experience. In fact, what it's saying is, how does your human experience inform your spiritual evolution, and how does your spiritual evolution inform your human experience? They are not separate from one another, they come together, right? So when we make a decision, mind, body, and soul, ask Source, Spirit, God, help me. I have made a decision within myself that this is the direction that I want to move in. Clear the path for me so that this happens in the most easeful way possible. There is an immense amount of surrender that this full moon in Scorpio is also asking us to have. And surrender into an understanding that there is a divine intelligence that is always there waiting for us to invite it to guide us. That's the beauty and the unconditional love of the divine, that it is never intrusive because it respects our boundaries and our own intelligence. But when we invite it in, it says, I got you. I have got you. I know the decision that you made. Give me some time. I'm going to rearrange this 3D reality so that things unfold in the way that is that much more easeful. And every single step of the way, how you're going to be called to make decision, every single step of the way is, okay, this feels a little scary, but I'm going to move forward. And you take a breath, and then the next step shows up. This feels a little scary, but I'm going to move forward, right? A lot of times when we have to make big decisions in our lives, we think of like the big decision and the big thing. And of course, again, part of the human experience. But when we come back to presence, when we come back to the now, to the connection to divine intelligence at this moment in time, what would God consciousness have me do at this moment in time? Right? Let's see. Boss, I want to move to a new city, but I don't know where to. I just want to leave, feeling a bit lost. That's a beautiful space to be in, right? And can you nurture the call? Can you be with the call of, I want to move? And can you also trust that the reason that you don't know to which city just yet is because the circumstances in your 3D reality and the circumstances to where you're meant to go are just not divinely timed yet. But there's something really beautiful happening. I know in my body that I want to move. That's beautiful. There is an awareness there that you didn't have before. And now you know. How do you nurture that? How do you sit with the unknown, not as a space of emptiness or as a space of feeling lost, but as actually that's where the magic gets to happen, right? I just want to leave. There is an understanding in your body that I've outgrown this. There's an understanding in your nervous system. There's somewhere else I need to be. Can you be with that? Can you be with that and say, I'm so grateful for the awareness that I have. And I allow the divine intelligence behind that awareness to guide me exactly to where I am meant to be. And can you be with that day to day? Can you be with that with grace? There is so much around whatever is coming up for us at this moment in time that we need to be with, that we need to nurture. There is a lot of unknown at this time. And the unknown isn't there to mess with us, to trick us, right? The unknown is there so that we can practice being in the magic of the unknown. Because in the magic of the unknown, there are so many other parts and layers of us that we can get in touch with, including our connection to source and divinity. The South Node in Virgo is activating a lot, but what do I do? How do I do it? When do I do it? When's it gonna happen? What's the plan? So it's activating very much the human mind, only to let you know, every time I go in that direction, nothing works out. But when I trust, something happens, and not even something physical, tangible happens. sometimes the most powerful thing that can happen when we lean into trust is the peace and calm that comes into our heart space, where we can feel like, oh, it's really all going to be okay. I am held, I am sustained, I am guided because I am unconditionally loved. None of what I'm saying because it sounds nice. All of what I'm saying because it is the truth of who we are. And a year like 2025 is the invitation to remember that. Because we have forgotten, because we have been conditioned to forget. And none of that involves dissociating, none of that involves ignoring the human experience. It invites it in as a whole. So, this full moon in Scorpio, what I envision feeling with this full moon in Scorpio, it's almost like very, very still, deep water, dark water. And there is like a curiosity of what is down there, but also like a little bit of anxiety, or maybe a little bit of fear of like, if I look over, do I dare to dive in? Right? The invitation is to dive into the depth of yourself, into the shadow of yourself, into the deep waters of yourself. Because there's gold there. There's something truly valuable and wise there. I think a year like 2025 will take you there, no matter what. So can you ease into it? Can you ease in the trust that your soul, that your heart has enough fortitude to hold the depth of what this full moon in Scorpio is asking you to look into, perhaps release, and to be rebirthed through? Okay? All right. I'll stop here. So much love to you all. Have a beautiful full moon in Scorpio. Clean your spaces. Clean your mind, clean your thoughts, declutter. Beautiful energy for that. Walk. Be calm. Tend to your heart. And I will talk to you soon. Take care.